So the question is Donald Tusk really seeking revenge on the PIS, or is he merely trying to restore democracy in Poland that the PIS reportedly destroyed? Let's find out. I'm Jan with Prague Pulse, and today we take a look at several significant steps that Tusk has taken so far, and whether or not they indeed are revenge against the PIS. And as always, if you like our content and want to support the channel, please subscribe and hit that like button. It helps us a ton. Let's dive in. In early July, the Tusk-led parliamentary majority lifted the immunity of Marcin Romanowski, an MP for the Sovereign Poland Party. The party was a coalition partner and a close ally of the PIS. Romanowski himself was actually quite a high-level representative of the former PIS government. He served as Deputy Justice Minister. The Tusk government now claims that Romanowski was involved in the misuse of the Justice Fund, a special pool of money intended to give financial support for victims of crime. Instead, it is alleged that the PIS used the Justice Fund essentially as a slush fund. According to Tusk, more than 112 million zloty, which is more than 26 million euros, was stolen from the fund in total. The prosecution even claims that the scale of the misuse could be much larger and amount to over 400 million zloty, which is more than 94 million euro. The scandal could prove detrimental to high-ranking figures from both the Sovereign Poland Party and the PIS, including former Justice Minister and Sovereign Poland leader Zbigniew Ziobro and PIS leader Jarosław Kaczyński. The Polish newspaper Gazeta Wyborcza reported that Kaczyński most likely knew about the potential misuse of the Justice Fund and warned Ziobro not to do it in a letter that has now leaked to the media. Apparently, Ziobro ignored the warnings and stole from the fund anyway. Because the Sovereign Poland Party and the PIS shared campaign financing ahead of the 2019 election, the coffers of both parties are now in serious danger. If the corruption allegations are confirmed, that is. The authorities could even revoke the regular state subsidies of more than 25 million zlotys a year that the two parties receive. In the worst-case scenario for them, the authorities could also order that all finances received in the period of 2019 to 23 be repaid. That could prove destructive for the two parties, as they are largely dependent on state subsidies for their functioning. Now, as you would expect, both parties deny the corruption allegations altogether and claim that they are the victims of a witch hunt aimed at destroying Poland's lawful opposition. When the PIS came to power in 2015, it quickly targeted Poland's judiciary, the only branch of government it did not control at that time.
The European Court of Justice has today passed judgment ruling that Poland violated the EU rule of law with its reform of the country's judiciary back in 2019. Well, for years, Brussels has been warning that Poland risks heading down a path towards autocracy.
Explaining the extent to which the judiciary had been captured by the PIS would take us an entire video. Let me know if you'd be interested in that. For now, let's just say that together with the highest Polish courts, such as the Constitutional Tribunal and the Supreme Court, thousands of new lower-level judges were also appointed by the PIS. And, of course, some of them proved loyal to the newly installed system by the PIS. The office of the state prosecutor was then joined with that of the Minister of Justice. They used to be previously separated, which gave the Law and Justice Party even more influence in major cases. PIS party loyalists were also placed in important positions of power in other state institutions, including the Polish National Bank, the state oil giant Orlen, or state cultural institutions. The Polish state media had also been captured and essentially became a propaganda machine of the PIS, which now even some party allies admit. Do check out our recent video on the Polish media and what the Tusk government has done to them, linked on the screen above. The Tusk government has also tried to take quick steps to remove some PIS loyalists from power by, for example, liquidating the state television network TVP and completely removing its management. Tusk's Minister of Justice, Adam Bodnar, has also dismissed 10 district and regional prosecutors literally overnight, with the argument that they had been installed illegally in the first place. However, as you might guess, taking such decisive steps is a double-edged sword. The main obstacle for Tusk is that he should be trying to respect the law and only dismiss and replace PIS loyalists when there is a sound legal argument for doing so. With the massive degree of polarization in Poland, however, both sides actually present themselves now as the only true defenders of lawfulness in Poland. Ultimately, that's where the accusations of revenge come from. Tusk is now being criticized for being just the same as the PIS and only replacing one type of elite loyalists by another. The other issue is more practical. Although the PIS has lost power more than half a year ago now, many of its nominees still remain in those important positions of power, mainly in the Constitutional Tribunal, the highest court in the country, which is still being run by PIS loyalists largely. Obviously, the more important the institution, the more difficult it is to change it, and the more likely Tusk is then to be criticized for taking revenge. Finally, Tusk tries to portray himself as taking Poland in an entirely different political direction than the PIS did back in the day. Right after its swearing in, the government introduced what they called a special action plan to tackle the concerns of democratic backsliding in the country. It has launched a charm offensive in the European Union, which resulted in the release of the funds which were previously frozen by the EU precisely for fears that the PIS was taking Poland in a non-liberal direction. That again is naturally now being criticized by the PIS, which claims that it had only exercised sovereign politics to defend the national interests of Poland against EU interference, and that Tusk is now robbing the country of its sovereignty as part of his witch hunt against the PIS. Tusk, for his part, has signaled he would be willing to integrate with the EU more. His government has, for example, joined the EU's Public Prosecutor's Office, which the PIS previously denied. Tusk himself has also been an advocate of Poland joining the Eurozone in the past. That, however, remains unlikely for now. For one, the Polish public seems to be against such a move, and second, the Polish constitution would need to be amended for the euro to become currency in Poland. And for that, the Tusk government lacks the necessary 2/3 of the votes in the Sejm. Apart from a change of tone at the international level, Tusk has also tried to introduce liberal reforms domestically. Just a few days ago, actually, his coalition attempted to pass legislation that would have softened the country's extremely strict anti-abortion laws. The bill would have actually decriminalized the act of helping a woman obtain an abortion until the 12th week of pregnancy. Currently, doing so can actually land you in prison for up to 3 years in Poland. However, Tusk's proposed bill was defeated by his own coalition partners, the conservative Polish People's Party. But even without the lack of unity in Tusk's coalition, which seems to be there, the government still has to deal with the Polish president, PIS nominee Andrzej Duda, who actually enjoys relatively strong powers. Most importantly, he can veto any legislation passed by the government, which then needs 2/3 of all votes in the Sejm to overcome the veto. And as already pointed out, Tusk does not have those votes. Effectively, that means two things. Either Tusk can try to negotiate with Duda and come to an agreement. That, however, is not very likely, at least not on contentious topics such as abortions, given that they come from opposite political camps. Or Tusk could also postpone the most contentious legislation until after the 2025 Polish presidential election, where he would naturally hope for a win of a more like-minded candidate. Now, as you have seen, Poland faces a turbulent future indeed. The new government of Donald Tusk has surely taken some bold steps, but that has been met with sharp criticism and accusations of taking revenge on political rivals, the PIS, which remains the single strongest party in the Polish Sejm today. Many PIS loyalists remain in important positions, which includes the Polish president himself. Tusk has also had a hard time quelling disunity in his own coalition government. All combined, it is quite unlikely that Poland will take a completely different direction now that the new government is in power. The level of polarization in Polish society is simply too big for that to happen anytime soon. But to be more positive, there are some key policies that the two camps, the PIS and the government coalition now, can fortunately agree on, such as Poland's dedicated support to Ukraine in its defense against the illegal invasion by Russia. The two parties also agree that they need to significantly increase Poland's defense spending. Poland is already spending the most out of all NATO allies in Europe, actually. And just a few days ago, Tusk announced that Poland would be spending 5% as opposed to the mandatory 2% that NATO allies agreed on of its GDP on defense by 2025. That is 5% as opposed to the usual 2%. So who knows? It may be the geopolitical shifts and the security threat now posed by Russia that will, at least partly, heal the enormous divisions that we see in Polish society today. Now, in any case, we will be watching, so don't forget to subscribe and like this video so that you stay in the loop. This has been Ahmed Frogballs. See you next time.